The thing is that if we were really going to talk about the left wing or the left is part of, we need to actually talk about how sensationalism in the way that you have to set up your YouTubes and your
Mm-hmm.
the media that you do independently is right now. So there's a lot of, I would say that a lot of independent organizations fall under a rabbit hole that they unfortunately need to be in, where it's you have to have a sensationalized headline, and I don't enjoy it. Like I am a Young Turk supporter. I will say that I have no problem with saying that, but I will say that there are certain elements where I think that the titling for something is just going too far, as in to overexcite the crowd and to overexcite your base. So you get into the bubble after bubble after bubble because people get turned off by that messaging. And there's a lot of messaging from a lot of these different groups of people, and they hit different people. Like MSNBC, I think literally is hitting all of these middle of the line, never, and I would say never Trumpers, because these are people that would maybe vote Republican in a different life scenario. If life had changed, they might vote for I mean, in like New Jersey, for instance, that's a great
Mm-hmm.
indication. Like that's someplace that voted for a Republican governor for a while, and then did not want to have a Congress that was Republican. They did a mostly Democratic Congress in state, at least,
Yep.
and in national elections. So we need to understand. I'm not even sure how to. My counterpoint to a lot of this is I don't want to just bag on MSNBC. MSNBC is almost too easy to draw from because you have the Oberman stuff that happened in the past, the clear indication that they didn't want to deal with left wing politics. We know that. Like, it's almost easy picking to me. Like, it's harder to talk about CNN, and when, like, for instance, MSNBC has been doing a good job bringing on some progressive people every
Yep.
once in a while. Though, and they're doing a better job now. I actually watched a video with Morning Joe this that happened today, but you could tell how nervous. I always forget her name. Unfortunately, I don't watch Morning Joe every day. What's Joe? What's Scarborough's wife's name?
I forgot.
It's
Sorry.
just gonna, it's
It's
gonna, what, I
it's not
I gotta give her
Megan
enough
Kelly.
respect to
No,
at
it's
least.
not Megan Kelly, right?
No, hell
No.
no, Megan
I don't
Kelly.
know,
That's
man.
a whole other story. We
Sorry.
should leave it. We should go back. We should go back to OAN for that. Misa Brzezinski. That's why.
Okay.
Mika Brzezinski.
Okay.
So Mika Brzezinski, you could tell just how nervous she was in this kind of. It was a crowd of three black uh, intellectuals talking about a book, and then one extra person. You know what I'm saying? So she's just trying to stay on topic for this interesting discussion about how to not ignore progressives, and you could just
Mm.
kind of tell that she was just like, this is not the discussion I want to have, and that's kind of what we need to do. Like, we need to make them a little uncomfortable. So I have to give MSNBC that. So that's my counterpoint to it. Honestly, I don't think that this strategy works for them as a news network. I
Yeah.
think they can't stay at the middle of the line. And sooner or later, they're going to have to decide if they are the full on, I don't know, center party kind
Mm-hmm.
of news network, and then bore everybody to death, and then nobody will watch it,
Yeah. Mm. Yep.
or go further. I don't know. I think that's their path. Unfortunately, is that
Look,
I don't know what's going on. There's
Fox thinks that they're what something's happening outside. Uh,
Mhm.
Oh, was I
Don't worry
gonna
about it.
say
It's
no, no, it's cool. I can't hear anything. I just hear like a little, like it sounds like a radio or something, not too loud. But anyway, was I gonna say with regards to it's funny how Fox and everybody wants to call them MSNBC like super uh, liberal and Antifa supporters and whatever else, and in reality, it's like as progressives, I look at them like, you know what I mean. And the same thing with like Biden, they support Antifa and this and that. I'm like, no, they don't. It's like, I wish, to some degree that Fox News views on MSNBC were more correct. Like you said, like I'm happy with it. I see like Sam Cedar and a couple of other people going on MSNBC and getting lucky enough to show their faces once in a while. And it's nice to get it out there, but like once in a while, to me, it doesn't really isn't as effective as actually having people there all the time. You know what I mean? And it's
Hmm.
the only reason why Bernie Sanders is getting a voice is because Bernie Sanders is Bernie Sanders. He's done a lot, and he's made a name of himself. With all this stuff that he's been doing with the primaries. But once he starts becoming unpopular, I don't think I'm going to see much of him there. I don't know. Have you seen AOC? I don't know if I've seen AOC on MSNBC too often,
Not on MSNBC,
or
but
anybody
maybe
else. I think I've seen
no, not in
Rokana.
a while.
I think I've seen Rokana on it. Occasionally you'll catch a couple people, but it's like I don't know. I think the topics though that they talk about really aren't like really in my views, like something that's going to grab a lot of attention to the public. I think it's like a lot of filler content. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel like it's really like something that, because I don't hear too much reporting about it afterwards. If it was such a huge deal, you would hear it on the progressive networks. This person was on blah, blah, blah more often. You know what I mean? But, it is what it is. But yeah, what discourages me is like, if it's not doing the things that their donors want, like basically like with this article that we have with the MSNBC broadcasting lies, this time about Bernie Sanders opening speech and refuses. This is an older thing that happened to Bernie or whatever. That really bothers me. Let me cut back to this view. It bothers me a lot that they can make a mistake and not admit it, and that's what a lot of these news organizations do. They do what they do until a lawsuit comes, and then that's when they do something. Or if they start losing money through their donors, not donors, but their sponsors or whatever, that's the only time they actually make an effort to correct themselves. And to me, I think maybe not as bad as Fox, but they're pretty bad as
Well,
well.
what is as bad as Fox? That's the thing. Fox's numbers still are pretty solid. They're still the number one rated cable news network. So it's important. Like, this is interesting for me that we had this discussion today, because I don't follow any of these networks. I don't follow Fox. I don't follow AON. I don't even follow like Reddits and 4chans that would give me that information. I might have to at this point, which is hard to realize, is that I might have to get to the point where I'm digesting news that is disgusting to me, you know?
Yep.
So we're going to get to that point, but I think that's a necessary part of it, where we're identifying the problem as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut to the Bernie thing so that we could see what's going on. Like, this is old footage, but this is like kind of what we've been kind of talking about.
Not mention race or gender until 23 minutes into the speech. And just for point of comparison, I went back and looked at Elizabeth Warren's opening speech, for example. She mentions race and discrimination in the first paragraph. So that's a big difference. And as somebody who is a black woman, knowing that black women are going to be poor constituency for any Democrat who hopes to win the nomination, I was looking to hear messaging specifically for my community, and I did not, at least until 23 minutes into the speech.
Today, at our very first rally, I want to welcome you to a campaign which says loudly and clearly that the underlying principles of our government will not be greed, hatred, and lies. It will not be racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia, and religious bigotry. It will not be tax breaks for billionaires and efforts to throw millions off the health care that they currently have. This campaign is going to end all of that.
So he sets off the speech with everything she said, didn't say, which is kind of crazy, right? But she said he didn't say.
I mean, that's just selective hearing. I mean, that's I I worry about it for obviously for people who weren't actively listening to what Bernie Sanders said. That makes sense. Um, I think that it's in their natural instinct to assume that he wasn't doing enough. Um, I don't know how to feel about it because that means that there's a rift between even like my constituents, basically the people who I identify with. There's a rift of like trust between anybody who I don't know. I don't know who they're going to say is acceptable other than a black candidate, which is fine. I just think that that's going to kill us because we need to understand that it's going to be people of all different types that are going to save us from ourselves in a way. They're going to be all people who are different than us. Strategically, that's just how it is too. Like people who you have to have an ego to do that kind of work. You have to have the ability to take on a lot of criticism. And I'm not sure if they're really ready to see a black candidate do that often. That's why we kind of, I guess we're kind of stumping for Nina Turner. We're doing that because we need somebody who's willing to do so.
What bothers me like with the whole thing is just like how they basically like even with the Republicans were doing it at one point before in previous elections where they would get an Indian person, they'd get a black person, they'd get a Spanish person, and they're like, oh, this person is this, and like so what? A person's a person's a person. Like I with me, I look at somebody based on their intent. You know what I mean? This is the things that we were always saying. Like when it comes to like what you do with businesses, it's the intent of why you're getting the technology that makes it whether or not they're using the technology correctly. Everything's about intent. And Bernie Sanders wanted to do something positive. I'm not saying he was perfect. I'm not saying that he had all the answers, but I think out of all the candidates, he was the most authentic in my mind. You know what I mean? And that's why I supported him. Now, the fact that you have these news organizations discrediting people and like not recanting things, they say it once, several 100,000 people get to hear it, right? And then they don't say anything again, or it'll be on a different show at a different time where these same people didn't hear it. You know what I mean? Like if you can't associate, oh, why is this person recanting this, at a different time or a different place, or if it's written on their website somewhere and it's not actually voiced out on the, television by the person that said it, people will never get, 1 + 1 and make the connection. You know what I mean? So I just feel like it shouldn't be about a person's color, about their sex, if it's a male or female, or male or woman. Teresa doesn't like me saying female. A man or a woman.
Why? That's actually it's actually
a scientific term,
male,
but I've heard a lot of women don't like the word female, so I'm trying to respect it. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's weird because that's a cultural. Let's just split off in that argument. That's actually a cultural thing where female is used as a pejorative, but to me, I use that as a distinction of sexual distinction.
Yeah,
specifically not even gender.
Scientifically, that's the same way, or whatever. That's the way I look at it too. But I feel like I've gotten to the point in my life where if it's offensive and I can make an alteration to whatever it is that I would say, I mean, I shouldn't have to in some cases. But if it's an easier thing to do that than get into a conflict with somebody or a discussion that doesn't have to happen, I try to respect it or whatever, and a lot of people in this country were like, well, that's cancel culture, or that's what is it, what's the word that they use for, damn, what the hell is that term?
I actually just find it, I don't know, but I'm gonna say that I find it just more interesting because some people would find the term woman like woman, like you're gonna say
right?
it in a certain like woman, no, but like that has a negative connotation in some aspects for other people. So it's just one of those things where it's a cultural difference. And but I understand. I also usually just say people's names when I know if I know your name.
Yeah. But I mean, like I'm saying, like in terms of this thing, it's like they're like, we need a woman president, or we need somebody of color to this, or like they make these specific demands to excite certain people, and then at the end of the day, that's what keeps people from voting, or makes people vote. Like it could do the opposite in some cases, but it shouldn't matter. At the end of the day, it shouldn't matter. It should be about the person's qualifications and their integrity. You know what I mean? And that's the problem with this country, is that they're like, oh no, because he's black. Like they called Barack Obama a Muslim, and that he was from this place and that place or whatever, and the birthers and all that other stuff. And then, then some people have their viewpoints. If a woman becomes president, it'll make the country look weak, and everybody has their opinions on whatever. But what if the person, like for instance, Tulsi Gabbard, she was a soldier, right? She could have been, in theory, a strong woman, that could have been a president, right? But some people still think that, her semi-progressive, I don't want to say she's fully progressive, but semi-progressive views are, against their beliefs. There's always certain things that's going to turn people off. It's about the whole package, though. You know what I mean? And it could be a man, it could be a woman, it could be, a different race, religion. It doesn't matter as long as their intentions are right. And, they bank on that with all these organizations. You know what I mean? Like these news organizations, they're like, well, she's not qualified because of this, that, or he's not qualified because of this and that. And I'm sorry if I'm like blabbing, but I think you understand what my point is. It's all about like a specific view. Like if he's not a lot of people in this country want a relatively middle-aged white guy for president. That's what they want. You know what I mean? They don't want to see a person of color there. They don't want to see a woman there, in a lot of cases. And that's, they make that a point in a lot of cases. And then they feel like in order to cater to a base, then, well, we got to have a black person, or we have to have a woman vice president, or we have to have this, or we have to have that. And to me, it's just like, it doesn't matter. It's who's running. Let's look at the people who are running and their credentials. And that's that. You know what I mean? I guess to some degree it matters, for the progress to see that it's possible for a black president or a woman president down the line. But I don't think that should be necessarily the main viewpoint of things. If you got that perfect black woman, great. If you got that perfect, and I don't want to sound like whatever. I don't want to make it like a black woman thing or whatever, but that's what I think drives the voting things, and the way these companies like address how to treat the candidates. It just gets, I don't know, it gets like they're what's the word I'm looking for? They're kind of like catering to certain people to kind of like, oh, well, he's black, or it's a woman, or he's Spanish, or he's, you know what I mean? Like I don't like that. I don't think that's a reason. I mean, I want a black president. I want a woman president. I'm not against that. I have a problem with people kind of like, like for instance, what's her face? Hillary Clinton with the Tabasco sauce. You know what I mean? Going into the projects. What's the word of that? Damn.
There's multiple things. It's condescending and placating.
Yeah, that basically. You know what I mean? Like I don't like that. That's what I feel happens when they do these type of things. When they were doing with that Indian guy from, I think, what was it, down south, what's this guy's name? Why can't I remember his name? I'm really bad with names. I gotta start writing some of this stuff. I didn't think we were gonna talk about some of these candidates, but Jindal, is this Jindal? Oh man,
Bobby Jindal.
Yeah, he's the Indian guy who was running for president, right? At one point, right? Or am I bugging?
Sure, is he? Yeah, if you call that running for president.
I thought he was running for president.
He did.
At one point.
He kind of tried to run. He just, yeah.
Well, it's like they were trying to say, hey, he's Indian, like, or he's this, or they're like, like as a Republican.
It's a common ploy. It's a common political ploy.
It's just freaking annoying, man. Like that's not what we're supposed to be looking at. We're supposed to be looking at credentials, and like what their goals are at the end of the day. If you don't like their views, like being a socialist or conservative or just a centrist or whatever, that's acceptable. But when you start talking about, oh, we need another woman president, that's one of the things that they were doing with Hillary. They were making it like as if that was like the thing that was the most important thing. She's a woman president. She's related to Bill Clinton. you know, like in some way because they're married and blah 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 blah. Like that's the only reason why she should be president. She had, you know, a lot of crap that turned people off, and MSNBC and CNN were pushing that like it was gold. You know what I mean? And I don't know, man. That whole primary or whatever was horrible. You know what I mean? And then now with this thing that happened to Bernie again, like if you can't see the bias, I don't know what to say. Like people are blind, man. And the fact that they're using these things like, you know, we need a woman president, that's something why you should vote for Hillary, or we need this because she's, you know, she's not going to go, like she's not a communist like Bernie is. You know what I mean? Like those viewpoints, I'm like, nobody's listening to the actual substance of what these people are saying and what their history is about.